It's very sad that it is out in the public now, and the public know their private lives. I do feel that Junior has probably disrespected his father in as much as he wouldn't be in the position that he's in today if it wasn't for his dad.
Chris Eubank Jr. may have a loyal fan base, but many within the boxing community have lost respect for him, with some even calling him a disrespectful and ungrateful son of a legendary father. Moving on to this fight, despite all the ongoing criticism, one thing that has remained clear is the fact that the buildup has been nothing short of incredible from the very beginning. Adam Smith recently shared his thoughts on the matter, emphasizing that the hype surrounding this fight has captivated everyone's attention from the start to now. He went on to give credit for this to Chris Eubank Jr., highlighting that it is actually Eubank Jr. who has won the build-up hype.
Absolutely fascinated by this. I think it's a fight that seeps deep into the casual audience. I think it's got everything, the legends, the sons of the legends. All we really need now is Chris Eubank to roll up on his Harley Davidson on fight week, but the pre-fight build-up has been won decisively by Chris Eubank Jr.
Further explaining his claims, Adam highlighted the key factors that demonstrate Chris Eubank Jr. has remained much more engaged throughout the build-up, from his intense exchange with Eddie Hearn to smashing an egg on Conor Benn's face. Unlike many others who have criticized Eubank Jr., Smith has consistently supported him for these stunts, emphasizing that they have all contributed to creating the perfect hype for the fight's build-up.
He's been brilliant the way he's controlled it, the premeditated egg smashing, the way he's dealt with Eddie Hearn, the riling of Conor Benn through the hands of Nigel Benn. And I think that the Benn camp have got to just watch their emotions, which they will. Tony Sims has got a massive job as Conor's trainer. But yeah, Chris just keeps going, doesn't he? Jibing every week. Now the bet with Eddie, and everything's just beautifully moving towards April the 26th at Tottenham Hotspur.
Amidst these acknowledgements, Chris Eubank Jr. is also facing criticism for his behavior. Sam Jones, speaking to IFL TV, slammed Eubank Jr. for his strange actions, expressing serious concerns about his mindset leading up to the fight. He pointed out that while there have been questions about the penalty Eubank Jr. might face for the egg slap, the focus should be on the fact that regardless of where the money goes, his behavior is simply foolish. Jones emphasized that with such a mindset, Chris Eubank Jr. is unlikely to win the fight.
You're treading a tightrope if you're kind of saying to, well, is it type of thing. So it's like, I'm not gonna question that. But if that's where it's going, then fair enough. That's it's fair enough. It is a bit weird though, because Eubank said he's contesting the fine, but his first response was worth every penny. So you're not gonna win no case to that.
Echoing somewhat the same opinion, prominent YouTuber Brian Davis, better known as True Geordie, reacted to the ongoing beef between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, pointing out that their families should take the matter seriously. He went on to assert that the drug test failure has escalated their rivalry to a whole new level. However, based on Chris Eubank Jr.'s behavior, Geordie insisted that Eubank Jr. seems to be in the habit of taunting Conor Benn while potentially setting himself up to get injured during the fight.
Must admit, this failed drugs testing has really kicked this up a notch, right? Because both of these families have seen fights go the wrong way, where fighters have been left permanently damaged forever due to what happened in the ring. These are two families who take this seriously, right? Very seriously. And in Eubank's mind, you were willing to cheat to beat me and potentially seriously injure me for life. And that's why he keeps bringing it up again and again. And also, it's mental warfare, right? It's kind of piss Conor Benn off because he thinks he's innocent.
Further speculating on Chris Eubank Jr.'s relationship with his father and his claim that Conor Benn has ruined his family's legacy, True Geordie pointed out that it is actually Eubank Jr. himself who seems to be worried about his own legacy. He went on to criticize Eubank Jr., stating that he hasn't won a major title yet. While Chris continues to take shots at Conor Benn and his father, in Geordie's view, the reality is that he disrespects his own father, who has a legacy of his own that speaks for itself.
This issue, but I think he can move beyond it. I think a lot of what Eubank is saying here is his fears for his own career. Actually, it's like him pointing the finger of what he fears is, have I lived up to my father's legacy? Because Chris Eubank's career is almost done now. And when we look back at it, There is no real world titles there, right? He won a belt, but it wasn't, in my opinion, no one really qualifies that as a proper world title. And whenever he stepped up to the level that you want to win at, he failed. And that's not something that happened to his dad. His dad had, countless world title level fights.
Moving on, as the relationship between father and son has played out in the public eye, with their private lives being discussed and their family's reputation scrutinized, top pundit Duke McKenzie shared his concerns about the situation. Calling it a sad state of affairs, McKenzie emphasized that it is ultimately up to the Eubanks to protect their family's reputation and keep their private lives out of the public spotlight. Expressing his condolences, he also disapproved of Chris Eubank Jr.'s behavior, particularly his disrespect toward his father.
When your private life gets washed out in public, listen, ultimately it's nobody's business except the Eubanks' business, and it's very sad that it is out in the public now, and the public know their private lives. I do feel that Junior has probably disrespected his father in as much as he wouldn't be in the position that he's in today if it wasn't for his dad.
Furthermore, Duke emphasized the significance of Chris Eubank Sr.'s career for Chris Eubank Jr. He pointed out that it was Chris Eubank Sr. who truly paved the way for his son. Continuing to condemn Eubank Jr.'s behavior, McKenzie stressed that Chris must respect his father, who has given him everything, including a future in the sport. He highlighted that their careers should never be compared. While McKenzie acknowledged that there's no problem with Chris Eubank Jr. striving to carve out his own path in the sport, he emphasized that Eubank Jr. must not overlook what his father has done for him.
Let's get that right. It's not rocket science. The dad paved the way. The dad made the name for the Eubanks. The son followed on in the father's footsteps. Okay, he can fight in his own right, but you can't compare the two as boxers.
Voicing his thoughts on the relationship, Duke went on to highlight how exceptional a fighter Chris Eubank Sr. was. He emphasized that Chris Eubank Jr. should learn from his father, while confidently expressing his belief that Eubank Jr. can never truly live up to his father's legacy. He compared their fighting skills and mindset, pointing out the contradictions in their relationship and the sadness of seeing them estranged. Duke observed that if they were united, they could have had a more profound impact on their family name. He went on to make a clear statement. Chris Eubank Jr. must realize that it is he who needs his father more than the other way around.
Junior could only really hope to be like his father in terms of, mental strength. His dad was a good tactician as well. It was just a good all-rounder, Eubank Senior. So, but Junior can't live up to that. He can't. How do you follow on from your dad being I think Eubank Senior was a 2-division world champion, right? So he's a 2-division world champion. He can't live up to that. He can't. And it's a little bit sad that he should think that he has to. He should just go about his business, which he is. But he needs his dad more than his dad needs him.
On the other hand, there have been statements from industry experts who have been very vocal about Chris Eubank Sr. being a hurdle in his son's career. Simon Jordan is among those who believe Chris Eubank Jr. is making the right move by distancing himself from his father. He pointed out that Chris Eubank Sr. has always been in the spotlight when it comes to supporting his son, rather than allowing his son the full freedom to showcase his own charisma. He emphasized that Chris Eubank Jr. has every right to make this decision and is doing perfectly fine.
He is a 34-year-old man at the time. He wants his own thing. His father is always going to be the centre of attention.
Yeah.
I think he's right to make his own decision.
Moving on, as the debate on their relationship continues, True Geordie comes forward to weigh in. Following a similar perspective, he pointed out that Chris Eubank Jr. is now a grown man and will do what he needs to do. He advises Chris Eubank Sr., reminding him of his responsibility to support his son. He pointed out that regardless of all the ongoing feud, he sees Chris Eubank Sr. as a very stubborn person. Wishing that Eubank Sr. buries the hatchet with his son, he continued to emphasize that this attitude of his is quite hurtful for Eubank Jr.
He knows the soft spot in Conor Benn is his love of his father. There is no soft spot in Eubank Jr. It's very hard to get under his skin right now, but he knows the Benns are emotional, like father, like son.
Geordie went on to highlight that whenever there is a standoff between a father and son, it is the father who should step up first to erase the ongoing feud. He pointed out that since Chris Eubank Sr. is mature and older, he must recognize the stubbornness of youth and how to tackle it with his wisdom and understanding. He deemed it a very stressful situation that is affecting Chris Eubank Jr.'s journey to move forward, something that he also gets taunted for. Making a clear stance, he stressed it is up to Chris Eubank Sr. to resolve this relationship now.
And whenever there's a standoff between a father and a son, I always think it's on the dad to put it right, because you're the mature one. You're the one who should be able to not have that youthful stubbornness and to have that wisdom of understanding there's bigger issues in the world and that your relationship with your son is on you to make good.
On the other hand, Duke McKenzie has strongly condemned all of Chris Eubank Jr.'s actions, regarding them as very disrespectful. He highlighted what has shaped his view against Eubank Jr., pointing out that openly admitting and talking about his father's bad relationship is, at its core, disrespectful behavior. Instead of being grateful to his father and naturally respecting him, Chris Eubank Jr. is publicly discussing it, something Duke views as highly disrespectful. He also emphasized that all of his other actions are completely unacceptable for a son.
But by the sheer fact that he's made this public knowledge is disrespectful. That's one of the things. And to say to his dad now, well, actually, I'm getting 10 million, I don't need you, which seems to be what's going around, that's disrespectful. You know, as a father from your children, you should have their natural respect.
Expressing his feelings of grief for Chris Eubank Sr., McKenzie asserted that he has not received the respect he deserves from his son. He also pointed out that while Chris Eubank Jr. keeps saying he wants his dad in his corner, he is actually just making a stunt. Stressing his claims, he highlighted that if Chris Eubank Jr. were truly sincere, he would have gone to his father by any means and sorted this out. He also reminded Chris Eubank Jr. that he needs his father now more than ever.
So, I just feel that his son has shown him not enough respect, or very little respect. He may be saying now, yeah, actually, I'd like to have my dad in my corner. They should have ironed out all this crap, because that's what it is. He should have gone to his dad. You can't tell me he doesn't drive. He's probably got about 10 cars. Or get on an aeroplane, or find his dad wherever he is and go and talk to him privately, just the two of them, and sort the crap out. Because he needs his dad now.
While people continue to call for a resolution in this relationship, with many wanting to see Chris Eubank Sr. in his son's corner, Gareth A. Davies holds a different perspective. Sharing his thoughts, he admitted clearly that he is an advocate for bringing the father and son together, but insisted that given the circumstances the family has recently gone through, they must stay away from each other. Highlighting how Chris Eubank Sr. has lost his son, he suggested that they should be kept at a distance for now.
I would always advocate a father and son working together if they can, but as far as it goes with what Senior has experienced with the loss and tragedy of the loss of life of one of his sons, Sebastian, and the ramifications that exist with Eubank Jr., I think we have to give them space.
It is no surprise that Connor Benn would have his father in his corner, but the point to notice is that at this very moment, people really feel the need for Chris Eubank Sr. to be in the corner space for his son. Gareth, while acknowledging these facts, stressed that we should approach the situation with an empathetic and sympathetic attitude towards both of them, given the circumstances the family has faced.
I'd love to have Chris involved in the fight, because he's the missing part of the jigsaw, with Nigel Benn being in the corner with Connor Benn and being in camp. But I think you have to be empathetic and both sympathetic about the situation that they're dealing with. The father here has lost one of his sons.
Meanwhile, Chris Eubank Jr. and Connor Benn recently sat down with Piers Morgan for an interview that has generated massive views. Eddie Hearn reacted to this, describing it as a heart-touching interview and going on to admire it. He also emphasized that throughout the interview, Connor Benn was supportive of Chris Eubank Jr. And although there was some back and forth between them, Eddie Hearn believes the interview has truly done a tremendous job.
And I thought it was quite a touching interview at times. I thought they both spoke very well. I thought Eubank Jr. was very honest about his situation, with his old man and his relationship, and Connor was, quite supportive of that at times. And there was a few naughty bits said backwards and forwards, but I thought it was great viewing.
As discussions continue about Chris Eubank Sr.'s involvement in the fight, particularly in the build-up, Eddie Hearn weighed in with his stance on the matter. He strongly expressed his desire to see both Eubanks involved, with Chris Eubank Sr. being present at any moment, aligning with Conor's viewpoint, which was also shared during the show where Conor Benn expressed his wish to have his father in his corner. Eddie highlighted this as a positive sign for Conor Benn. Further adding his own perspective, he pointed out how effective it would be for the build-up of this fight.
I've got a funny feeling he'll be there at some point. I don't know whether that's on the night, whether that's in the build-up. And, you know, I stand on the same kind of line as Conor. I really hope he is. I mean, I think, you know, you'd always want your dad to be there in a moment like this, I feel, you know, especially as an ex-fighter and with the rivalry. But
as many people continue to argue about the relationship between Chris Eubank Jr. and his father, Eddie Hearn stated that this should not be the focus. He pointed out that this is a deeply personal matter between them and any speculation regarding it is unfair. Instead, he emphasized that the family issues should be mended privately, not publicly, and that it's important to respect their space. Hearn also noted that while the public is interested in their story, the real resolution must come from within the family, and that kind of personal matter should be handled with care and understanding, away from the spotlight.
You know, I think it's something like that is personal, and I don't think we should really speculate. And you know, it's not for us to talk about that relationship. It's up for them to find a way to hopefully mend it.
As the anticipation continues to build and opinions flood in, Duke also shared his perspective. Despite criticizing Chris Eubank Jr., he went on to express his desire for him to turn out to be a winner. Stating his reasons, Duke highlighted that he wants this because Chris Eubank Jr. is a great showman. He suggested that Eubank Jr. has the potential to bring a better spectacle to the ring than Conor Benn. Furthermore, speculating on the fight, he asserted that this isn't just a matchup between two boxers in the traditional sense. It's a fight where the legacies of their families are on the line, ultimately turning it into a battle of celebrities.
I'd like to see Eubank win. I don't really have a clear cut. I'm not, you know, I don't care if Ben wins. I don't really care if Eubank wins. But if I had to pick one of the two, I'd like to see Eubank win because he's a showman. He's more of a showman than Conor Benn.
And there you have it, folks. A closer look at the ongoing saga between Chris Eubank Jr. and his father, Chris Eubank Sr., as well as the differing perspectives from prominent figures in the boxing community. It's clear that emotions are running high, and the question of family and respect looms large. But ultimately, it's a deeply personal matter, and how it's handled will speak volumes about the relationship between father and son. Meanwhile, the anticipation continues to grow, with many people picking Chris Eubank Jr. as their favorite. But who will truly prove their dominance? Only time will tell. Another question also lingers. Will Chris Eubank Sr. make his way into the game? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Eubank Sr. should be involved in his son's corner? Or is it time for them to resolve their issues privately? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis and updates on this evolving story. Until next time, keep your gloves up and your opinions coming.